Nowadays, I feel like they don't listen to music, they consume it more. And the second thing, which I found very, very strange, is they don't have the concept of sound. When I was a kid, we were going to each other's house.
Just a bit too light.
And if you complain once more, you return, I love you. And if you complain once,
That's life.
You'll find no photograph of me where I am smiling about meeting with the Israelis. I did not smile because it was not a meeting about delivering a message that involved a smile. I did not smile. I did not smile. I did not smile.
Under me sense, me under me sense, under me sense, me under me sense, under me sense, me under me sense. Whoa, see, whoa.
Let me take you to a place I don't wanna go. It's a good life. Hey, yeah. I don't wanna stand around and beg you. Just don't say no. No, 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 no.
Jacob may be a wee cracker. Tunnel's tea cakes have got a silver wrapper. No one.
Why you crying? Brother, why you weeping? Sister, why you crying? Love is on the mountain. Love is on the...
X is the world's town square. Well, here we are, gathering. Here we are gathering on What the X this morning on the world's town square. Who will join us? Who will continue to join us? Who will leave us?
We about to put it inside of a love perspective, like.
My favourite things, like post-election when I had run against him, and he had obviously, this scandal had come out pretty much right after he got elected about him taking money from his own department to give to a book festival for the book that he was going to promote.
I was messing around on the keyboard, with that sample, and this is what I came up with. This is what ended up in the track.
No.
Bonjour, happy Friday morning. The joys of the weekend are soon to be upon us. And I've just been up at the City Chambers where there was a good turnout, to be honest. A good turnout of people for protesting the cuts, which we'll have a wee look at in a minute. Just have a wee look here. I know I was a bit late getting the old link up this morning. Matty Ross, good morning to you. Ken, I was a wee bit late with the link in that. I was going to put the link up last night. I should have done that, but I was knackered. I was just like, I couldn't get round to it. I couldn't be doing with it. So yeah, I've just come for the City Chambers, and it was a really good turnout. We'll get a wee look at and see what they're saying. I thought we might just go and look at that webcast, give ourselves an easy Friday. Once I get all my bits and bobs, I never even got a chance. That's how much I was rushing down the road. I never even got a chance to get my coffee. I'll get my coffee later, eh? Anyway, it was good to see so many people, and hopefully they'll have gone in. In fact, I'll have a wee look now. Is that where you are, Rona? Are you in New Orleans? What an amazing town. Morning for New Orleans. I went to New Orleans. It was amazing. I went for Mardi Gras. It was pretty wild. It was pretty wild, to say the least. In fact, New Orleans was like, I would describe it as like Scotland and Ireland on steroids. I can tell you from first-hand experience, the people, no one gives a fuck in New Orleans. They're not impressed by anything or anyone. They're just doing their thing. They're super cool as well. So I hope you're having a lovely time there, Rona. Cool place to be. Morning Sky Blue, morning Matty. I'm getting messages here. I'm getting messages.
Right.
I'm
Good
getting
morning,
messages.
everybody. Apologies for the slight delay there. We've got quite a few people, so it's about trying to find spaces for people to
You hear
watch
that? All right. Okay. That must be the.
Say.
Yeah. Here we go.
Good morning, everybody in the room and online. So welcome to this meeting of the Edinburgh Integration Joint Board on the 1st of November 2024. As usual, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that
It works quite well with the synthwave. They should probably do all the council meetings to synthwave, to be honest.
You should be aware that the IJB is a joint data controller with the City of
Bring
Edinburgh
it over
Council
here.
and NHS Lothian under the General Data Protection Regulation and Data Protection Act 2018. This meeting will be broadcast to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during this webcast will be retained in accordance with Council's published policy, and the chat function is visible on the live broadcast, so please bear that in mind. Okay, thank you. We have got quite a packed agenda, but before we do that, we've got no apologies indicated to us, and just a few things that I wanted to acknowledge before we start. This is the first meeting, I believe, for Dr. Andrew Cool, who is the registered medical practitioner. So welcome, I very much welcome Andrew. And we also have Ben Owen. I think Ben is your first time attending this meeting as well, I believe. So welcome. And also just to note that this is Pat's
Good morning to you.
last meeting, and also Helen's
Good
last
morning to you,
meeting as
Dave
well.
Swift.
So you have certainly picked an interesting meeting to finish on. So
Morning, Bojos McGinty.
as I say, we have quite a long agenda to get through. So the next item on the agenda is declaration of interests. Order of business. Yes, thank you, Andrew.
Right. So we'll let these cats just witter away.
The discussions and give us the maximum amount of time. I'm proposing to rejig the agenda.
I tell you what, I mean.
So we will do declarations of interest naturally, and then we will do deputations. And after that,
I would maybe watch the council meetings if they had a DJ. What do you reckon? If they had like a live DJ
that, we will do 7.2
in the council chamber,
and then after
it would make
that,
the council
we will do
meetings a lot more
7.1,
interesting.
which is the wider finance paper. I think that makes sense given the proposals that have come in as well.
It adds a certain atmospheric quality to it.
Hopefully that will give us maximum time to discuss the salient items on the agenda.
The salient
today.
items.
And then after that, we will go into the rest of the business and just follow the items, including minutes and actions. I think, in the interest of time.
Well, let's at least
it's
try and check out.
So I see nodding all around the room. So that needs us to get straight
The
to
first
business.
deputation.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, so item 2 is declarations of interest. The Code of Conduct requires members to declare any interest they have in the items being considered at today's meeting. These can be financial or non-financial.
I was hoping it was going to be that crone that was at the other meeting. I think so. Who are all these cats here?
Okay. I see no other declarations of interest in the room, so that enables us to move into deputations.
Well, let's hear the first deputation.
The board happy to hear the deputation submitted? Okay. So that takes us. Oh, sorry.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Andrew. So, under the standing order 8.6, the deputations will be allocated 5 minutes to present our case. Thank you.
5 minutes.
So the first deputation we have is in relation to item 7.2, Edinburgh Integration Joint Board Grants Programme and Public Social Partnership, and it is submitted by the Ripple Project, and we have Rachel Green speaking to this deputation.
Right, let's see what Rachel's got to say.
Welcome, Rachel.
So before I start, I've brought in 600 letters for you, Katharina, written by people in my community over the last week. 122 of those are from under 16s. We've also got a petition online and in person. 700 people have written a petition in person, and we have 1,500 online signatures that will be for using next week. I'll leave those with you. Thank you. So my name's Rachel Green and I'm the director of the Ripple Project, a community organisation based in one of Edinburgh's most deprived areas. For clarity, throughout my deputation I will use the acronyms ROI for Return on Investment, EHSCP for the Edinburgh Health and Social Care Partnership. And when I talk about the grant programme or our grant, I mean the EIJB grant programme. With limited time, I'm making an assumption that the board do not need to be reminded that the recommendations go against national and local strategies of prevention and well-being, and that one of the main aims of the EHSCP is to focus on community-based preventative care, so I will not labour these points. I do, however, want to bring the attention to and make the board aware that the recommendations, sorry, I'll slow down a bit, they are being asked to approve are not based on a balanced evidence-based view. The 0.18 and 0.95 ROI figures presented in the paper make generalised assumptions about the impacts of the current grant programme. These are misleading, they're at times irrelevant, and they are potentially highly inaccurate, leading to a conclusion that is not safe. As sources for the calculations of ROI have not been referenced, the board can neither interrogate nor assure themselves of their robustness. If the source, which it seems to be, is the Public Health England report from 2017, Commissioning Cost-Effective Services, then the figures that are presented have been chosen to evidence a particular conclusion, overstating the benefits and significantly downplaying the risks and negative impacts. Therefore, the paper does not provide an objective view. The 0.18 and 0.9 figures are based on single interventions that are not directly comparable to the vast majority of the programme. Specifically, the 0.95 figures are based, estimate is from all projects that address loneliness within the grant programme, and is derived from data on a signposting service, and it cannot be generalised. There are numerous inconsistencies in the paper. For example, an ROI of 0.18 is said to be a modest return on investment, and yet an ROI of 0.95 is not considered to be cost effective. A threshold for cost effectiveness in reference to these conflicting statements has not been defined, nor has an amount of time been specified to allow for the return on investment. Finally, there is no comparison provided for EHSCP delivered interventions. If the board is being asked to make a decision based on the likely ROIs of the grants programme, then estimated figures for other funded comparable interventions should be provided to help the board make a more informed decision. If I may for a moment share the Ripple's position, the Ripple is a prudent and responsible organisation. We work on 3-year forecasts and have funding targets year on year within our funding strategy, targets that I had fulfilled for last year. In June this year, we were advised by the EHSCP verbally, and it was then reported in writing, that there would be an extension of the grants programme for 25-26, with the aim to use the next year to co-produce an altered framework going forward. After a precedent of numerous extensions, the Ripple had no reason to believe that this would not happen, and it's never been communicated that this was no longer proposed. Whether the committee decides to approve the recommendation to cut the fund in year or at the end of the financial year does not change the prognosis for the Ripple, as either 3 months or 5 months is insufficient time for me to secure alternative funding. Our grant does not sit on its own within our portfolio of funding. The grant we receive contributes to core costs, which enables me to lever in additional funding for service delivery. The loss of £87,000 of grant could mean a loss of £500,000 invested in my community. If the board needs evidence of a good return on investment, let me share this, given to me by a community link worker in our area. From July to October this year, 51 out of 73 patients supported by the Community Link Worker Programme through Barron's Court Surgery were referred and or signposted to the Ripple, to our mental health and wellbeing programmes, our children, young people and families service, our older people service and our community and volunteering projects. Of those 51, all of whom fall into the paper's specified group of high strategic impact, 36 of them have confirmed that they have been well supported by the Ripple. It's not unreasonable to infer that these are individuals who would have required additional health and social care support had they not participated in the Ripple's programme.
Rachel, I'm really sorry, that's 5 minutes up, and we need to be fair to everybody, so could I please ask you to wrap up?
30 seconds. For the reasons above, I do not envy the board's position, not only for the challenging decisions they have to make, but for the fact that they are being asked to make them without the proper knowledge and information. It requires a certain level of bravery to stand up and speak out, but I would urge voting members to dismiss this paper on these grounds and then work with the sector that I know you value, despite appearances to the contrary, to deliver the best possible solutions for our most vulnerable people.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rachel.
They're not used to hearing people in the gallery, like, trust me on that.
Because Rachel, you said that you've had confirmation that the grants programme would be extended. Did I get that correct? You did. Sorry, could I just, is there any light that officers can shed on that? Because my understanding is that the decision would be made at the end of this financial year as to whether or not the grants programme would be extended. So I'm just trying to understand how it's possible that representations have been made to you that there would be funding when in fact the decision wasn't made.
Sent to everybody that it was going to go to the committee in August for that to be proposed.
Andy, could you just shed some light on that? Thank you.
So I think what you're actually referring to is the minutes of the consultation. Linda did advise that that request would be put in. There was never a decision that was made that that was officially going to be a recommendation made. So Linda didn't say that that would happen. She said she would take that, and that is a minute. But that you were referring to the minute of the meeting where she said she would take that request.
In the spirit of conferences and consultations that we hold,
but that
we
is
would have
quite
expected
different. That is quite different from a written confirmation.
We would have expected for that to have been communicated to the sector if that was not going to go ahead, and it wasn't.
Morning, Doreen.
So just for the purpose of the board, you're referring to a minute of a meeting where she said she would take that as a request, not a confirmation that would occur.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So what I've been hearing is, thank you for the clarification, Andy. I think what we need to do now is we're going to questions now. Okay? So we've got Vicky. You wanted to speak. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for your deputation, Rachel. So could I just dig a little bit more into that conversation? And perhaps from a chair's perspective, I'm not sure if the back and forward between the deputation and officers is the way that this committee should be conducted.
How should it be conducted?
In June, when you had your stakeholder event, the More Good Day stakeholder event, you said that there was correspondence sent to all of the organisations that had been part of that.
The minutes of the report, yes.
The minutes of the report, and then you were under the impression that that would go to a committee in August and a decision would be taken. Could you expand a little bit on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, I guess because there's been a precedent. You know, we have always heard and been given information either at conferences or at stakeholder events or where the person in question has come to forum meetings. So it was not unusual for it to be communicated like this, nor was it unusual for us to think that that would just then move ahead. We've had numerous extensions. There was no reason for me to be alarmed that it hadn't yet been communicated formally.
Thanks. George?
Thank you. During the whole process that we're leading up to this paper, it's been stated that we actually don't have sufficient data to show that there's a value for money. What level of data were you submitting on an annual basis and to whom at that point, so that we can actually see if the data has been immersed in this paper?
So the main SQIAs that we've been asked to submit are based on smiley faces. We are asked to give satisfaction surveys of all of our reports. We have delivered, and I've been, you know, my reporting has been signed off by who I've reported it to year on year, that I have submitted the data that has been asked for.
Just to use the hand these days, the other one was, you said that there's additional funding levered in. Is that directly to your organisation, or is that just additional support coming into the community? So
no, I am the only organisation in my community. Well, the Ripple is. So we're just sitting about £480,000 at the minute. of this £87,000, which keeps my building open. If I don't have a building, the rest will go.
So that's that core funding.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's not all of core, but it's a significant amount, and core is very difficult to get hold of these days. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just, we do have quite a few deputations to get through, and we've got some really substantial agenda items. So can I maybe just urge members to limit your questions to one question only, please? Thank you. I've got David and then Alistair. Thank you.
Rachel, a very powerful presentation. Thank you very much. I was struck by two particular points you made about the difficulties of in-year closures of projects like this and the limitations of applying a cost-effective approach and all the arguments that can give rise to. You see, I'm a service user representative. I'm an independent member. I am not a member of the Health Board, so I approach these things quite dispassionately. I just have, in elaborating what you said, I'd just like you just to give me some numbers. How many people in the community do you actually currently provide services to, and how many staff would fall redundant if this project does not continue?
Okay, so we, I'll answer something and then answer that. So our grant is £87,000. If I only supported 87 people, which I don't, that's £4.16 per day. We've got signed letters here from 600 people in the community. We have 100 volunteers per week. We have 300 people through our doors every week. We have a community of around about 6,000 households. We support around 2,000 of those. The £4.16 a day, I will have to refer 87 people straight away for a care package. That's not £4.16 a day. Really sorry, I've forgotten your last question. Could you... Pardon? Redundancies. So we have 7 full-time staff, 11 full-time equivalents, myself included. We have 100 volunteering positions and 3 supported employment jobs.
Thank you. Alistair.
I guess I'm going to know the answer to this, but do you feel you've been properly engaged and given the opportunity prior to this meeting to make any plans? Thank you.
No. A hard no. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Rachel. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for questions.
So that takes us to 3.2, which is a deputation in relation to 6.3, the medium-term financial strategy update, 7.1, the finance update, and 7.2, the Edinburgh Integration Joint Board Grants Programme and Public Social Partnership. And this is submitted on behalf of Edinburgh Community Health Forum and Health All Round. And we have Catriona Windle speaking to this deputation.
Welcome, Katrina. You've got 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
5 minutes.
Hello, everyone.
Your
My
time
name
starts
is Katrina
now.
Windle, and I represent Edinburgh Community Health Forum as its chair and Health All Round, a charity in South West Edinburgh that has been running for 35 years. Who will pay the price if you go ahead with the proposal to disinvest in 64 charities? Well, according to your own impact assessment, and this is an abbreviated list, older people, people with disabilities and long-term conditions, carers, refugees and asylum seekers, people living in poverty, people experiencing homelessness. In fact, 50,556 people will be losing services that they rely on to stay safe and well. And they will return to whoever referred them for support when our doors are closed.
Totally,
And
your
that's
own
going to be
impact
a problem.
assessment.
95% of Health All Round's referrals come from GPs or Thrive. The 65 people who are on our various waiting lists will be going back to their doctors within weeks or days. The 250 to 280 people who are currently accessing our services won't be far behind them. They will join the 1-year and 2-year long waiting lists for psychiatric, psychological and chronic pain services. Vintage Vibes tell a similar story. 93% of their statutory sector referrers agreed that the people they referred will require statutory sector support if they can no longer access Vintage Vibes. And of course, we also need to add to the growing list of the negatively impacted about 200 voluntary sector staff who will lose their jobs, including myself and my team of 11, some of whom are sitting behind me, approximately 3,000 volunteers, and if that doesn't mean much to you, I'll give you a recent quote from a Health All Round volunteer. "I don't know how I survived before I met you. You have been my guardian angels. You have been the best thing to come into my life for years. You have literally saved my life." Referring again to your report, Oscar Guidance for Charities recommends that they develop a robust funding model that can withstand fluctuations in financial support. That's a quote from your report. What a pity the IJB isn't always also required to develop such a model. Yes, some of our charities are dependent on IJB funding. That's why it's called core funding. It was agreed many years ago to support the inequalities charities in this way, in view of the fact that it is extremely difficult to get core funding from any other source. Our health and social care partners wanted us to have some degree of financial stability because they were relying on us to deliver their prevention and early intervention strategy. With this funding, we have created a network of organisations embedded in local communities, serving those in need, achieving improved health outcomes year after year. And in one sweep, this whole structure is to disappear. And we're going to lose money because charities bring money into the city. 16.1 million in 22 to 23, secured by charities and invested in Edinburgh's poorest communities. 16.1 million. You're prepared to lose that. I wonder what the citizens of Edinburgh would think of that. We don't know because we haven't asked them. There's been no consultation with the third sector or the public on this proposal. I don't think we have ever been treated with such disrespect, which is strange because in your own annual performance report less than 8 weeks ago, you were very complimentary about our services. What has happened in that 8 weeks? What changed? It certainly isn't us or our communities. Is it your deficit? It does seem to shapeshift from one report to another. 108 million, 64 million, 45 million. What are we to believe from one meeting to the next? We understand that the figure will hop about as issues arise. Surely then, it should be comforting to know that your third sector partners are rock steady in their ability to complement your budget with an extra 16 odd million every year. Shouldn't you be looking at us and thinking, well, at least that bit works?
Katrina, I'm really sorry, but 5 minutes are over and we need to be fair, so could you please finish? Thank you.
Voting members, please do not support this cruel and grossly unfair proposal. Do the right thing and help us to continue our good work. And not just until April 25, we need assurance of funding beyond that, or some of Edinburgh's oldest and most trusted charities will fold. We understand the pressures the IJB are under. We do not want to be at war with you. Our sectors are united in their aims, keeping vulnerable people safe and longer, healthier lives for all our citizens. Give us the chance to work with you as equal partners, finding solutions together as all healthy communities should.
Thank you very much.
Check the vibe, the vintage vibes. Why you want to cut the funding to vintage vibes?
Okay.
Everybody looks like they're having a good time.
Members in the public gallery, thank you very much for your
support.
support.
They're having a great time, man. Why you want to take their money away?
Through today, so could you please help me in keeping us on track? Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, I would like to open up for questions. George, you wanted to come in and then Alice. Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation. I'm only allowed one question. How much funding do you leave it in on the back of the actual IJB grant? You've mentioned a broad brush across the city of 16 million, which I get, but from your own specific project's point of view, how much additional resources leave it in on that original grant?
So we get 180,000, which is, I think, the salary of your chief officer. And we get, well, last year we got in another 300,000, which is fairly typical.
Paul Lawrence, what's his bonus? What's
Great,
Paul
thank you
Lawrence's
very much.
bonus?
Alice, please. Thank you. Thanks so much for coming along. I wondered if you could say just a little bit more about the referral and the link between yourselves and the work you're doing and GPs' practices, just to explain a little bit more for the committee. Thank you.
So it's mostly GPs and Thrive that refer to us. Thrive more and more in recent months. But it's always been, you know, before Thrive it was generally GPs, 95%. But every week now Thrive are bringing 3 or 4 people. So people go to them for support and they bring them right to us.
Thank you. David.
So on my list of people affected and staff made redundant, I've got between 250 and 280 people adversely affected and 11 redundancies. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we've got about 200, but it's all a bit of an estimate.
Yes. Now, I'll be enormously sympathetic to you, but the problem the board has, you'll understand, is finances. And if we give you the
What are
money
your
that you
finances
need,
like, pal?
You have not the slightest doubt you can use profitably and usefully for the benefit of the citizens of Edinburgh.
Profit?
Have you got any suggestions about where we can find that money from within our existing spending programme?
Stop spending money on stupid shit like psychopaths and crap like that.
But I do have quite a lot of ideas, actually. I think mostly about the sectors working together, properly working together, finding practical solutions. I think we could save quite a lot of money if we put our heads together.
Thank you. And I've got Paul who wants to come in. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, Katrina, thank you for your presentation. It occurs to me, and as you know, I completely get this, but I wonder if maybe you could expand a little bit on the impact that it means for your organisation and the other community health forum organisations of the in-year cut as opposed to working forward in your budgeting, expecting you to be able to, the grant programme may or may not have continued in the next financial year, but what's the impact of it cutting now?
If the in-year cuts go ahead, well, some projects will fold more or less straight away, so they won't even be here to argue for their funding beyond April 25. And some of them might have enough reserves to keep them ticking along till April 25, but not all of them. I think we think about 17 projects would fold if they don't get their funding. So, to not give us our last quarter funding, would put us at a major disadvantage for the following year. So, okay, if we survived, we'd still probably, most projects would be making redundancies. And some projects will just not survive even that.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Thank you. I can see no further questions, so thank you for coming and thank you for giving us your views. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so 3.3 is in relation to item 6.3, the medium-term financial strategy update, 7.1, the finance update, and 7.2, the Edinburgh Integration Joint Board Grants Programme and Public Social Partnership. The deputation is submitted by the Health Agency, and we have Dr. Nora Murray Kavanagh and Rossi Craig speaking to this deputation.
Welcome, Nora and Rossi. Got 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much for hearing us and
5
for hearing
minutes.
our voices this morning. I'm Nora Murray Kavanagh. I'm a very proud Deep End GP working in an area of the highest deprivation in this city, along with us and Craig Miller and Nedry. You've heard from the Ripple Project already. As Andrew Cool knows, because I'm on the phone to him all the time, in Wester Hailes our life expectancy is at least 15 years younger than the rest of the city, and our patients live in more ill health during those limited years. Although I prescribe a lot of antibiotics and cholesterol medications, my expertise and my job as a general practitioner at the Deep End is to support people to make difficult decisions and to manage risk. And it is in that spirit that I am proud to be at your service today. Nobody envies the task at hand here, and everybody understands the financial issues. I am usually in my scrubs at this time of day on a Friday as the duty doctor in Wester Hailes, but I had booked annual leave for today, fortunately, so there is no place I would rather be than here, supporting not a charity that we refer to, but our third sector partners in the health agency. And I want to speak to the narrative of that. There are ways for you to access all of the numbers, and the deputations so far have been excellent on that. The numbers exist to help you make good decisions, but I want to give you a brief narrative of a surgery that I run. So, in any given morning or afternoon, I will see patients and their family members who are struggling. I will refer to Vocal for carer support, Waverley Care for hepatitis C. We don't have any real statutory head injury support, and that's one of the 64 charities affected. We have a huge refugee and English as an additional language population, so the welcoming again is on our hit list of things that we use. The Deep End movement is hugely supportive of income maximisation embedded in the practice, and community link worker programmes embedded in the practice, and that is what we see working every day in Wester Hailes, and those structures are also at risk in this proposal. This deputation is in support of the health agency. I cannot explain to you how much we use it, how frequently we use it, and how we value it, except to say this: I could not do my job without the Wester Hailes Health Agency. My job would be unrecognisable were that service to not be there. We use regularly the CBT services. They house our link workers, tasting change, addressing food poverty and young people, children and weaning. We know that the amount of sugar you eat in the first 1,000 days affects your health for the rest of your life. It's been in the news this week. Okay, these are all practical projects that are happening right now that are at risk because of this proposal. The health agency also houses Wester Haven as a cancer and chronic disease long-term care support service, and has just started an amazing prehabilitation project which is making a difference already to the lives of the most vulnerable people in the city. And the time frame proposed in this is devastating. And what I really need you to hear is we are all working in silos. I get it. The NHS are terrible for it. We're trying to get better. This is an integrated joint board. We need to smash the silos. Should this go ahead? Should these charitable organisations cease to function? Primary care does not have the capacity to absorb this. These patients will have nowhere to go. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, and the numbers that you seek and the impact that you seek and the mitigations that you seek and the solutions that are required, they exist, and we need to have the conversations, and the third sector are here for that. Work with us. I don't envy you your task. I support you to make good decisions. Please ask us anything you need. I would just like to give Rosie a moment just at the end. Her voice is hugely important in this. Thank you for your time.
Hi, so my name is Rosie Craig. I work at the Health Agency. It's a community health organisation that has been running for over 25 years. Working with most vulnerable and disadvantaged in our community. What I want to say is that the work we do is critical in keeping people with high needs safe and well and away from statutory service. We work with risk every day, and we help mitigate that risk. Dear EIJB board members, please don't underestimate the value and importance of the work we do. Just from yesterday, we've had hundreds of testimonials from clients that we work with saying how the health agency is a lifeline to them, and for some, how we literally have saved their lives. And without us, they would have nowhere to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. I see Alice, you would like to come in.
Thank you very much, both. Nora, you talked about that you're working in an area of deprivation, and one thing that this report in the impact assessment doesn't do is dig into the geographic spread of the projects that might be impacted. Do you think that is missing a piece of the puzzle to not have that information?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, David?
Mara, it so happens I know quite a lot about Wester Hailes. Since a long time ago I was chair of the Wester Hailes Urban Partnership. It's changed a bit since then with your refugees and asylum seekers, and I remember very vigorously the representative council of those days and how vigorous they were in advancing the interests of the people of Wester Hailes. So I know the Wester Hailes community quite well. I'd like to ask the question I asked before. How many people will be adversely affected by the withdrawal of this service, and how many redundancies does this mean?
For us, as a small organisation, and we bring in an extra £327,000 on top of the funding that would come from the EIJB, but for us it will be hard to survive this cut. We'll have 11 health agency staff redundancies, 16 sessional workers that will no longer be able to work for us. We support over 2,500 individuals over a year, and then on top of that, obviously all the families that come in as well. We'll lose over 3,500 counselling and CBT sessions, and direct referrals come from GPs for that service. And also the 250 families that we support that have a cancer diagnosis would also lose their support.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. I have got Alan next, and then George.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation there. You haven't really spoken much about the financials now. I'm sure probably know the answer to this, but how do you think that you are helping the EIJB to either save costs or save time? What do you think, how would you put that case?
Well, I think for a lot of our work, what we do, some of it's preventative, but some of it is actually just dealing with risk. So for people with cancer, we help support them so they don't go and see the GPs as much, so they don't have to go to the hospital. We make sure that we try and keep them well for longer, and we try and keep them at home for longer. We work with 40% of our patients are palliative, and we try and keep them at home as much as we can. For people with severe mental health issues and trauma and suicidal ideation, again, the work that we do, the mental health support we provide, keeps them away from your statutory services.
And in addition, I would say that these are patients who find it incredibly difficult to access health services that are designed by well people for well people. The literacy level in my community of 8,000 patients is 9 years old, trying to navigate, buses without money, letters from services, digital poverty, meaning that engaging with electronic communication is difficult. So these are patients who are not only voiceless, but also, hindered by our structures. Now, obviously, we're all working on that to make it better, but as it currently stands, these are patients who would not really be able to access stuff outside of the community, and that's really important. The prevention message is really important too. So things like working with families who have never had modelled to them what healthy eating or weaning might look like for a child, to do that practically, to do poverty-informed diabetic diets. So we've got the first non-NHS staff member trained in Desmond, which is the type 2 diabetes diet and lifestyle service, and that is being delivered in the heart of our community. So these are things that would be lost and not able to be replaced. Thank you very much for that. I've got George down next, and then Andrew. George.
I was going to keep our current theme about the money levered in, but you've answered that. You've actually mentioned that the services would not be able to cope with the amount of individuals coming out of these cuts. Use a GP and your referral system. How many of the patients that you're referring do you feel it would end up being a repeat? People gaining access to yourself? I just want to try to get an overall picture of the pressure that you as a GP would be put under if these services were ceased.
So Wester Hailes' population at our practice is at just over 8,000 list size, and you can hear that Rosie is already naming 2,500 per year plus their family, so it's a significant part of our list size. And I think already we will all be familiar with the difficulties in getting general practice appointments, and a huge part of our role as clinicians is how to make our triage system safe, because we cannot meet demand. So how do we structure it so that we can? And right now, if we're not able to meet demand, how do we do it without the support of this? But in addition, the work that I do when patients do come and see me is I have a trusted partner. I walk them down, we walk hand on elbow, we walk to the desk. I know our our tasting change coordinator, our movement coordinator.
I think it's ridiculous that these people are forced to come and make these pleas in this way. I think it's an insult to them.
That are really irreplaceable, and we know that from the work of the Deep End Movement and that evidence-based research projects, we know that relationships are what makes the difference. I hope that answers your question. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Andrew, please.
Thank you very much. I think you partially answered this, but in terms of the actual impact, it sounds like there is effect on secondary care presentations. That's what you're saying as well?
Primary and secondary. Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And so any work where we can go upstream, any work where we can embed in the community and in primary care means that that secondary care will see a benefit later on. And it's hard to count because it's not in this financial cycle. It's not even in this electoral cycle, but it matters. Okay, thank you very much, both of you, for your presentation and for answering the questions. Thank you for the questions. Thank you.
Okay, so 3.4 is in relation to item 6.3, the medium-term financial strategy update, 7.1, the finance update, and 7.2, the Edinburgh Integration Joint Boards Grant Programme and Public Social Partnership. The deputation is submitted on behalf of Edinburgh Community Food, and we have Brenda Black speaking to this deputation.
Thank you, Andrew. Welcome, Brenda. Thank you. You've got 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Brenda Black. I'm the Chief Executive of Edinburgh Community Food. I'm also a registered dietitian who's worked in the commercial sector, NHS acute services and the community. I am here today to advocate for nourishing food as being a critical part of tackling health inequalities. Food connects us all together. We all have to eat. It builds community cohesiveness, creating an interwoven safety net in the city, with the care of its most vulnerable people being at its heart. I ask today that the IJB funding for this year is guaranteed and runs to full length of the contract, that the 25-26 grants are not cut completely, and that we are an integral part of the conversation to make the required savings, and finally, that there is recognition that the savings that go through that will be a significant future shocks to vulnerable groups in this city. In Edinburgh Community Food, it is estimated that the proposed IJB actions will result in around 330,000 being lost due to interdependency funding and partnership relationship funding. Since 2019, we have consistently exceeded our IJB targets, access to food reaching over 110,000 people, attainment of food skills of 15,300 people with accredited and unaccredited qualifications. We achieve this through our unique food-related health inequalities focus to reach the most vulnerable and marginalised people in our communities in a dignified, respectful and compassionate manner. The work is key to the collective contributions to reducing poverty in the City of Edinburgh. Evidence consistently shows that the investment in community prevention is one of the most cost-effective methods in improving health outcomes and reducing health inequalities. While we recognise the significant funding challenges faced by the IJB, disinvestment from the third sector for the sake of short-term cost savings seems misguided at best. Such actions are likely to increase the pressure on our statutory partners. I would like to go on to discuss two of the risk factors associated with funding cuts. Risk factor 1, reduced access to fresh, nourishing food. We supply and support 45 community cafes, 28 community organisations across the city. There is a disconnect in food insecurity and food banks data. Simply, we don't know the numbers of the people that don't go to food banks. We know the number of people that go to food banks is only the tip of the iceberg. In fact, a significant number of people in food insecurity access food through lunch clubs, cooking sessions, community hubs, all supported by ourselves. The proposed cuts will increase the risk of children going hungry, parents skipping meals, and carers reducing their own food intake. We do 12 directly related health projects across the city. Nourishing food has a vital role in preventing illness, promoting good health, preventing frailty and falls, reducing hospital admissions and increasing resilience of life shocks in the population. Risk number 2 to public health. People and organisations that provide food to vulnerable groups must do in a safe manner, appropriate to the target population that they serve. We provide the food hygiene training and the support to make this a reality in our communities. The benefits are twofold. We increase public safety through better food handling, and we provide valuable recognised qualifications that enable people to find work in the food sector. The proposed cuts will remove our capacity to do this, reducing quality assurance of food provision and therefore increasing the risk to public health. We provide value for money and can evidence this as required. You only need to ask. For example, case study 1. We had a single mother of 3 recently discharged from hospital. She was unable to shop, cook and prepare food for her children. To put her children into short-term emergency care for 2 weeks would cost between £2,400 to £6,000. However, the cost via Edinburgh Community Food of a nutritional support over the phone with a qualified nutritionist and home delivery of appropriate foods for 1 month would be around £150. Case study 2. We're in partnership with Edinburgh Lothian and Green Space Trust to combine services around physical activity, sustainability and food. A man with diabetes attended an 8-week cooking course at the cost of £300. This helped him to reduce his medication, saving over £3,000 per year.
Brenda, we are over 5 minutes, so could you please wrap
Okay.
up? Thank you.
Yeah, I will do.
Thank you.
I acknowledge the board has a difficult role to engage with us and develop more cost-effective services and make savings. If you need an economic evaluation, then let's work together. But above all, don't destroy what has taken years to build and will take years to rebuild. Finally, we urge voting members to stop this now and engage in meaningful discussions in the spirit of local democracy. Be bold, be brave, stand up for the people in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brenda. Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions? George? Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned the actual training element of food hygiene. But as a former chef, that's very important. Can you give me a bit more information on who you actually deliver that to and how that is then implemented for preparing safer foods?
Yeah. We deliver it to community groups all over the city, the lunch clubs, or whether it's, lunch clubs, projects, it might be around mental health, anybody around the city that we all eat, so everybody's interested in food. A lot of people get donated food and surplus food that's maybe been in the supply chain a bit longer than it should have had, and it's redistributed to our vulnerable population. We need to make sure that that's done safely, and that's what we do. People that are maybe receiving that food are maybe compromised in terms of immunity and things like that. So getting this wrong could be a high price to pay. There's nobody else in this city providing this training for free or part payment. But also, the figures tell us that 35% of the people that get this training either go into better employment or more attainment. Don't lose this essential qualification across the city.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. I think, Vicky, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, I did. Thank you very much for your deputation. I was very interested in what you said there about food as medicine, and
Yeah.
I'm interested in the IJB as the distributors of these grants, and whether you think what you're doing is something that's a function that should be delegated to the IJB, or do you think there would be a better way to deliver these grants to the third sector?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning I spoke about the cohesiveness of food, the connectivity of food, and I think that we cannot underestimate how valuable that was. And in terms of even the city itself, You know, it's important that we have a resilient and responsive food operations in the city that can escalate and de-escalate as crisis happens, and it needs to be done by speed. We have proven that we've got expertise in this. Now, you might say, is that the IG? It's certainly somebody's role to make sure this happens across the city, and we have been in that position, and we have stepped up with our partners across the city to do this effectively. I see us as a resource, a resource to this city.
Thank you very much for that. David.
I welcome what you said about your willingness to work constructively and your recognition of the problems that the board has. It's one thing which seemed clear from this discussion that we had so far this morning is that there needs to be a fundamental reset of the relationship between this board and the voluntary sector. I'd like to ask you again my usual question: how many people in the public sector in citizens of Edinburgh would be adversely affected by the withdrawal of your services, and how many redundancies are we talking about?
We're talking about 7,500 people across the city in 1 year, and we're talking about 5 redundancies. And I'm going to mention something else about the redundancies.
This guy's got
people who have
a framed image of the trolley problem in his blog, isn't he?
They are experienced people, experienced and well-trained people in community work are difficult to get and difficult to build.
Thank you. Peter.
How many? How many people?
Thanks very much for that.
I want to know how many. How many people?
I have to say that a lot of what we're hearing today, I've been on the board for 3 years, a lot of what we're hearing is new to me. It's really that we're not really hearing that level of detail, because we don't have the time to get all the detail, but this has been so...
You just got to take me, cut the money in that.
One question then about the food
side. We didn't hear for you normally. Now we've cut your money, we're hearing you now.
What I'm not clear about is, are there a whole range of other organisations out there doing parallel work?
I've been doing this for 3 years. I don't even care who you are. What do they fucking pay you for, your teapot?
How does it all join together, or is it kind of independent groups?
I didn't even know that this is... What am I doing here?
We have
I've been here for 4 years.
Going on around the city. But in terms of what we do, in terms of being an approved training body, we're an approved training centre, and through that, it means that we uphold the quality assurance in terms of food. So we support the partners to do things safely and to do things with expertise and with the credible qualifications that they need to do it. We're the only community partner really that does that.
Belden Lascar says, I bet he knows everything about tourism and student residences. I bet he fucking does.
Community reference groups, so there's only 4 community food organisations in that, and we are one of them. And we work nationally.
Can it be
in
new?
terms of our credibility and what we do, we worked with 10 MBA students from Edinburgh University 2 weeks ago to look at our social return on investment. We are a credible organisation doing credible work. We understand economics, and we want to be value for money for the people of this city.
Thank you very much, Brenda, for your time to do your presentation, answering questions. Thank you, members, for questions.
Thank you.
Nigel Smith says, I doubt many of these committee members have been in a flat of someone who is living in poverty.
The next deputation is in relation to item 7.2, Edinburgh Integration Joint Board's Grants Programme and Public Social Partnership. It is submitted on behalf of Cyrenians, and we have Ewan Aitken speaking to this deputation.
Ewan Aitken.
Welcome, Ewan. You've got 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me along today. I come as both the Chief Executive of Cyrenians, but also the Chair of the Ripple, which you heard earlier before, but also as a former member of Midlothian IJB and also a former elected member. And so I have a great deal of sympathy, and I've been where you are, literally in this room on occasions, trying to grapple with budget deficits. And I recognise in particular that you've been grappling with a 32 million systemic deficit since you started. And frankly, that should have been dealt with a long time ago. And we need to find a solution to that. What I want to argue today is that what's been proposed isn't the solution and will undermine the opportunity to create the relationships so that we can actually contribute.
How much money has this council spent on absolute pointless shit? Can we get an audit on that?
The difficulty with the report as it is,
has this council
there are really
money on?
two flaws that are connected. The first is
the
evidence that is presented is what I would have called in my theological days proof texting. You come up with an opinion, then you find a text to prove it. And there's a significant number of evidence to suggest otherwise. Had we been asked for it, that would have showed a different result. For example, it doesn't fall within the framework of the Christie Commission, which is the frame that a lot of us have ever used over the years. But it also, for example, we can show, there's a report here from Shelter that shows that people who experience homelessness cost the health service over a 12-month period at least £16,000. Everything that we do to stop people become homeless reduces the pressure on the health service, and that's why the particular grants programme piece that we had in Cyrenians, which was Golden Years, which was supporting older people, was targeted at a group that was often not recognised as being more likely to be in homelessness, particularly if they were socially isolated and struggling with ill health. There was actually a significant increase in the number of over 60s presenting as homeless from that group, and that's why we set up this group to create the support network so they could stay in their homes, because we know if you stay in your homes, you're more likely to stay healthy and less likely to use the health board or the health resources. But actually, beyond that, I want to argue that if you want to get to where you want to get to, which is a new way of approaching how we spend the money, and in particular the area spend the money on the third sector as a whole, not just the grants programme, what you cannot do is in the process claw the feet from underneath the third sector in the process and then say, by the way, could we have a new way of doing our commissioning? That would be great, wouldn't it? And this is why we need to think differently. We need to stop this so we can have the conversation that we need to have. And I'll give you a couple of bits of evidence of when you do have that conversation, things really work from my own organisation. One of the services we run, it's not funded by this, but it is funded in partnership with through the IJB, is a hospital in reach service. We embed a team in 3 hospitals, and because we've put temporary accommodation and so on in all the addresses into your system, that gets flagged up when somebody gets admitted. These are the frequent flyers. We know that people who are experiencing unstable accommodation are much more likely to use A&E. And in the 4 years that we've worked with them, that's 1,200 people supported. In the first year, and I've got the evidence here, the first year we supported 300, and we reduced their attendance at A&E by 68%. And one example of that was a guy who the previous years had been admitted 49 times in a year, and even if he only stayed one night, he stayed for more than that, but stayed one night, that's £419 a night, that's over £20,000. He's now in settled accommodation because we were able to have the conversation with him on the ward, and he only was admitted for one night. £20,000, £400, because we have the right relationship. And what I want to say today is, do not damage the opportunity to have that relationship that we need to have, and that we've actually had for the last 6 or 7 years, so that we can get to the place we can get to, so that we can help you. Another example is our gardens in the Royal Edinburgh, where we took a public asset, which was a piece of land. We started running a community garden in it. Patients come out to the garden. We've now been able to evidence that patients who spend time in the garden spend less time in hospital, but also the staff in the Royal Ed also like coming out to work, so it improves their well-being as well, and we've actually created spaces for that specifically. We've now introduced community payback onto that as well, so we can improve the garden. Another public service using a public asset. They do work in the garden that frees up our staff to support more people. And the folk and the guys on the community payback get a result because we've had better outcomes in terms of them as well, and they've been much less likely to offend. And we know that people who reoffend, who go through the criminal justice system, if they don't get the support, are 13 times less likely to get a job, and therefore 13 times much more likely to get into poverty, therefore much more likely to end up homeless, and we end up back where we started again at £16,000 a year. And there we, because we were in that position as a third sector, took that public asset, brought two
sorry,
bits.
but that's over 5 minutes.
Sure,
Please.
thanks.
Thank you.
Took those two bits of the public sector, put them together, and created something that's changing lives and changing the public sector at the same time. You actually have an opportunity here. This feels like conflict, but you have an opportunity. If you stop the in-year grant, and I know that the Council will help you with that, in that process, you have that conversation and get through that, and then we can create the way going, the strategic way forward that will make the difference and really deal with the issue that you have to deal with, which is that strategic thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ewan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've got a number of hands. I've got Tim first, and then Alan.
Ewan, thank you very much for your many insights on the problem that we face. If I could just ask you to focus on the proposal for how, in the future, we develop a better relationship and a better way of working with our voluntary sector partners, the public social partnership. Having looked at the details, you know, all the detail isn't there. Having looked at what detail is there, is that a relationship that you would welcome? Do you think that would work as a better way of working?
Right, well, what are we thinking?
Actually,
basically,
it's been working up to now.
What do we reckon? How do you think the vote is going to go later on today? Anybody got any ideas? Are they going to
And we had those
kick the
conversations,
can
and we
along or
talked about
something,
the
or are they
strategy.
going to make a vote
And
on
those
it?
that
What
wanted
do
to
they think?
continue were able to continue, and those that didn't made a choice not to because they saw
I
what
think
was
there's probably
happening
a few
and
more
decided it wasn't for
deputations
them.
still to
And
come.
that's absolutely fine. And then over the years, we've gone through a process to learn how to do those commissioning, and where people say we need to work together, we need to have consortium, get on with that, or the money will go to this group because they've got strengths and other people do other things. We've already got the evidence that can work. And that's why I think, you know, the second part of the paper, which talks about PSPs, has potential. I would be cautious about saying, and it has to work like
Edinburgh
this,
City Council's
and
Hunger
say
Games.
it needs to have these need to be the chairs. I would say, if we want to work PSPs around funding streams, theme streams, whatever, then that absolutely can work. But we need to create a space for that conversation, and I would urge you to think about, in the first instance, thinking about something akin to a compact between the IAGB and the third sector. A way of communicating. Because if we get that, and we've got that frame of reference, then I think we can achieve some really, really good things, as I've tried to evidence we've tried to do it ourselves.
Thank you for that. I've got Alan next.
Yeah, pretty much on the same lines, actually, just in terms of your unique perspective you've got from being on both sort of campuses, where, you know, just not clear how you think we should be working together. You know, if you could do anything, how would you get the third sector and the IGB to work together?
Well, I would stop the in-year grant for the start, you know, stop the proposal to cut the in-year grant for a start, and then I would say, let us put ourselves in the room and use the model that was already there with the previous pact, where you have people in the room and you talk about why the priorities need to be where they are. You actually are honest about the budget challenges, and you recognise that you can only do things within a certain envelope, but you then ask not just what does the health service do and what can we add to that, but what are we all doing for the people of the city, and then how we put those things together so it's real partnerships. The two examples I gave work because they're real partnerships. They're partnerships between peers. Part of the problem with the present model is it's the health board or the IGB, and you can do a bit of that for us. This needs to be about conversations so we do these things together. And there are a whole number of models of public social partnerships that work, but they begin with a space to have a safe conversation, and the evidence, and then agreement on the strategy, and then a recognition of where skills lie, as we've heard earlier, where different strengths lie, and then you place you plan your strategy and how you fund it on the back of that.
It would be a total disaster. I mean, I think there are definitely questions about
George, did you want to come in?
Yes,
charities in the third sector.
Along similar lines.
Okay.
How quickly can you think that, or envisage bringing the third sector together for a forum like that, because we have other agencies like EVOC and other ones that they do work for the third sector. I was in the room 7 years ago, and the one in 2015, I think it was, we also had a similar event, and I think that actually worked things out. But how quickly do you think that can be done? Because obviously we are running a deficit, and we need to do that really quickly to get to
Well, I think there's two parts to that. The first is that we'll work as quickly as we can, as we need to, because we know that there's pressures there.
I sense that they are uncomfortable with the amount of people that are in that room in the public gallery and just the general vibe. But why would they not be? It's pretty clear even from the deputations that we've held so far.
And
just what the impact will be for some of these projects and on the communities.
About helping that happen, because
the real scandal is that it's been allowed to get to this stage.
Taking the time to do it well, rather than rushing it because we've got
a bigger question.
I absolutely get that you've got a statutory duty.
The neoliberal model.
The trouble is, the statutory duty sometimes produces perverse outcomes, because you run to a timetable,
and the continual prioritising
as opposed to a timetable that gives us the time to do
profit motives that have got nothing to do with the city and its residents, and that are to do with corporate interests and the interests of private capital.
You know, here's what
and a city council that's entirely wedded to
the beginning of April. Then they can contribute to that,
private
because in the long run,
enterprise.
that will help them.
And wasting money on needless projects for a long time.
Thank you. I've got quite a few hands up still to speak to you. Could I maybe just implore you to be succinct in your answers? That would help everybody know.
Nobody's ever said to me before we start.
I mean, if you think about it, like, you know, they found, what was it? They found 300 grand to give to the film house. And last night the kids in Niddrie are setting off fireworks and everything again. There's nothing going on for the kids in the community over there.
Program that we're talking about today, is that
anyway,
specifically used for the Golden Years
I've
service, or is it used for anything
else? I've enjoyed, well, I wouldn't say that I've enjoyed.
Does it have other funding sources as well?
I wouldn't say that I've enjoyed.
It's match funded by the
what we've been watching, but I think it's informative. I think it's been worth checking out. I don't think anybody really.
Eugene?
My questions have been answered. You'll be glad to hear.
Thank you very much, Eugene. Max, please.
Chair, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Ewan, for your presentation. You and previous deputations have mentioned.
I like seeing them, though. I like seeing them all there. I like getting a look at them all.
We just had a comment there about the statutory duties on the IJB, and I think we're sort of the report, obviously, at 7.2 alludes to the situation. So, is it?
I also like the fact that this makes me look like I'm sat at the council meeting, which technically is a possibility, depending on other circumstances. I could be in there with my feet up on that desk.
The decision to be made today, given you also said that you know that the council is willing to help in this, to then look at possibly a full council meeting that's taking place next week in order to move forward.
My advice, for what it's worth to you, is don't agree to the in-year cut, because that will have such a damaging effect on the relationships without the certainty of what you describe actually happening. I would suggest that you note the situation and ask the council and the health board to review what they might be able to contribute to this, and that would allow you, I think, to
that's an oxymoron. It's an oxymoron, NTV, the humanity of Edinburgh City Council.
Going forward.
Thank you for that. I've got David.
A very powerful sermon, Ewan. Congratulations. I want to pick you up on you heard me say that I think the relationship with the sector needs to be reset, and you've referred to the need for a compact. I think we need to, I want to be in a position where I don't just hear from the voluntary sector on a crisis occasion like this. I want to have you there at the table, and perhaps we should have 2 representatives from the voluntary sector at the table in these board meetings, so that we can hear your views continuously and constructively.
That's some blue sky thinking there, bro. That's some blue sky thinking.
Interactive relationship with the voluntary sector. Now that
very powerful sermon, aye.
You to be proactive as well. You could not, in that situation.
What a condescending prick! Who is this guy anyway? Who is he?
or
I
trying
can't
to
read what it
protect
says.
the
What's his
interests of the
name?
voluntary sector.
Can we find out a wee bit about him now?
Fully in our activities,
David, could you maybe stick to questions?
I'm getting to that. I'm getting
Thank
to that.
you.
Don't worry.
What's his name? David Belfall. What is it? What's his name?
I'm just anticipating the debate which we're going to have.
So, Councillor
I
Cat
want to get
speaking.
to a situation where we have that constructive relationship and we have the trust between the two bodies.
Yes, Sermon, exactly
I'll
what
ask
a
my
condescending
question.
bastard there.
Well, first of all, are you sympathetic to that, and how would you take that forward? And secondly, can you answer my factual question?
Who is he?
How many people is this going to adversely affect as far as
Who is
salaries
he?
are
I can't
concerned?
see his name
How
because
many
I've got
redundancies?
David
as
what?
the second
I've got the something on my screen in the way.
and we supported
Right,
more
where's
than
he from?
500 people
David
last
Belfall.
year,
What is he? Is he a councillor?
in that particular service, far more overall, but with regard to golden years. Very sympathetic to that. As I said, I was the third sector rep on Midlothian IGB, and absolutely understand when you're there you have to think about the IGB. I think having more than one rep would be good. But actually, most of the work of this group happens
Was he a
outside
committee
the actual
member?
meeting. The meeting should be scrutinising what's happening, but actually, and creating the right forum for those conversations to be happening on a regular basis, which was what was happening through the PACT model, I think would
So
be...
is he an official?
the best
Is that
way
what he
forward,
is?
And I know that everybody would be up for that.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, he's the guy, right? So he's an official. So this is what happens, right? So he's one of these officials, and they're the cats that are telling the councillors what to do on all of these matters. The councillors just do what cats like David tell them to do.
So that takes us to 3.6.
Do you think
which
David's
is in relation
David's hungry to
item
push through the
6.3,
cuts? What do we
the
reckon?
Financial strategy update, 7.1, the finance update, and 7.2, the Edinburgh Integration Joint Board Grants Programme and Public Social Partnership.
What's his sister?
This is on behalf of the voluntary sector reps of the Adult Support and Protection Committee, and we have Marion Finlay, Mike Wright and Martin McLean speaking to this deputation.
Welcome, Marion, Mike and Martin. You've got 5 minutes.
Morning.
Thank you.
Marion Finlay, Mike Wright. Chair, can I clarify
Civil
that
servant.
Mike and I are representing our sector? Martin is here as the independent chair of the Adult Protection Committee. He's formerly of Police Scotland, and he's here to clarify any points regarding the committee. The Adult Support and Protection Scotland Act of 2007 requires public bodies to work together and with others to support and protect adults who are unable to safeguard themselves, their property and their rights as a statutory duty. In 2022, adult protection in Edinburgh was subject to a joint inspection by the Care Inspectorate, Healthcare Improvement Scotland and His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary. The inspection report in February 2023 identified substantial areas for improvement, but despite the concerns, the report praised the city's third sector, stating third and independent sector bodies play a vital role supporting adults at risk of harm to realise improvements to their safety, health and well-being. In Edinburgh, third sector organisations day in and day out are keeping people safe from harm.
It looks
This
like he's
includes
creamed
the
off the
64
public purse a lot for
organisations impacted
himself
by this
for a long
proposal.
time.
Can I give you 3 examples
Surprise, eh?
from the 64? Phoenix collaborate with colleagues in NHS Lothian to support Polish people at risk of suicide by providing language support and, most importantly, cultural sensitivities and trusting relationships which often these people don't have with the statutory services. Phoenix also do work addressing domestic abuse and violence against ethnic minority women. Fresh Start build trusting relationships with vulnerable people, many of whom have experienced homelessness. Their staff and volunteers are the people who notice the subtleties in someone's presentation and behaviour, which is often the first indication of something pernicious.
How long will I give it?
And finally, a small organisation that has to remain anonymous for reasons that you'll hear are currently
Right, I'm going to hang about a wee bit longer. I just want I need to.
lady
I'll be back
who
in a
lives
minute.
alone, has no family, has serious health problems and is virtually housebound. She is being financially abused and intimidated by a neighbour who only yesterday appeared at her door with a weapon, threatening her for money.
he left with £10. And this is only part, as you can imagine, of a very complex story, but she is terrified. And Police Scotland and Social Care Direct are now involved. But the folk from that organisation continue to pop into her. They get her shopping, and on rare occasions they get her along to their centre for a cup of tea. And that might look like she's going to a wee coffee morning, but believe me, it's far more than that. These are the vital people that she trusts, and she will continue to trust until a solution is found, and that will probably be a statutory solution. It's a current situation, and it may sound extreme, but it's an example of the complex, significant and critical work that that organisation does every single day. Community organisations are engaged with some of our most vulnerable citizens. They spot when things are amiss and they intervene when needed. And often it's with simple words and simple actions, but it's far from simple. These measures keep people safe, prevent a crisis, and they alleviate pressure on the statutory services. When they spot a crisis or criminality that requires a statutory response, they escalate accordingly. So, what will be the impact on people at risk of harm? What will be the impact on statutory bodies to fulfil their statutory duties if these services are cut? Well, over 900 adult protection referrals between 2022 and 2024 came from the third sector. The absence of community groups could result in increased adult protection referrals, so people will be more likely to call the police, go to A&E or go to their GP. Or it could work the other way, that people with complex and critical needs will remain completely under the radar until an emergency occurs, or until their problems become so chronic and so embedded that the statutory support required is of a much higher and intensive level. Either way results in pressure on the Edinburgh Health and Social Care Partnership to fulfil its statutory duties. We understand all statutory services, including the AHC, SCHP, Edinburgh Health and Social Care Partnership, and Edinburgh's Chief Officers Group for Public Protection, are committed to early intervention and prevention. This becomes even more important in times of financial constraint. We believe the services affected by the proposed cuts have a key role in providing that vital early intervention and prevention and keeping people safe. We ask members to consider these issues when deciding how to vote this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. Bang on time as well, thank you. I would like to open up for questions. I've got Paul and Vicky, please.
One of the reasons of the existence of the paper and proposed in-year cuts, etc., is because of the board's rightful concern. Failure to take mitigations like that will mean it could be a breach of its statutory duties. But if I've heard you correct, Marion, what it looks like is an unintended consequence could be that statutory duties are breached as a result of the saving. Is that correct?
Yeah, I assume so. Sorry, I didn't. Martin, would you say a breach of statutory duties?
I'm not sure it quite go as far as saying that, but I think what we're clearly highlighting is that we want to ensure that the possible ramifications.
I've missed a bit of this. There's a bit of a debate going on in the X-chat with
funding cuts.
Football Fans Against Racism says, why is a charity involved in policing issue? Fair dues if they get referrals, but they're plugging a gap in policing the community that proper community policing should cover. And Nigel Smith says community policing was killed when Police Scotland came about. It's a joke now.
Because of the loss of eyes and ears.
I guess that Nigel would not.
And more chronic and complex referrals will occur later, increasing the challenges for statutory services.
Thank you. Vicky.
Thank you for your deputation. Along similar lines to what Paul asked, I want to ask a little bit about not just
Never trust an ex-Polis involved in community charities. Take a look at the collaboration that went on in Milton, Glasgow, between the Labour Council. The Cops had a drug gang. There's a lot of truth in some of that stuff. I've got some knowledge of that happening in Edinburgh as well. So there's maybe some truth in that. I don't know. Maybe Nigel's got some opinions about it. He's got some skin in that game. He knows about it.
Would you expand a little bit on that, please?
I don't trust VG Cops. Well,
I suppose the thing that's interesting is the 64 organisations we're talking about today. None of them are actually funded to provide adult support and protection. They just do it. They're funded to provide outdoor activities, gardening, cooking, whatever, all the things, and they just do it as part. So the example I gave of the 88-year-old lady, the line in the IJB budget for that organisation will say something like lunch club or social activities, when in fact that organisation, that lady chooses to engage with
the X stream will probably cut out at half past.
Tea, social activities. They're the people
and I think I'm going to
really
wrap up now, because as interesting as it's been, and it is interesting.
So she would never go directly to the police, but they will support her.
No bother, Dorian. I'm going to leave us with a track with Seams's new
without them. And
single, which I made the video for.
Involved with them.
Thanks for joining us once again. I'll go here. Hold on a wee second.
Alice, please.
Pause this now. Thanks for joining once again for a slightly unusual What the X, which we didn't manage to. Where's my sting? I forgot to put my sting in, didn't I? But well, listen. Thanks for being here. I was keen to see what that was. Now somebody's phoning me. What's going on? You can get called back later. I'm going to leave us with Seams to the Lions. It's out today. I made the video. I hope you enjoy it. It's a cracking track, and I'll catch you on Monday. Ciao.
Self-involved to be there, to be there. I'm hanging by a thread. I'm doing all you can to see. Feeding myself to the lion. Waking up to death. Is it real?